Every 6 months, Star Citizen hosts one of two entirely distinct events that serve the same exact purpose: revealing, releasing, and selling you as many ships as you can fit inside of your computer. Whether it's November's Intergalactic Aerospace Expo or May's Invictus, you'll have nearly 2 weeks to repeatedly log in and run through the host city to the Expo Center to sprint between rooms looking at the new and old vehicles that you'll be able to freely rent for 2 days in one of the handful of Star Citizen's non-monetized pieces of content. This year, Invictus coincides with a surprisingly robust minor update, so that means it's time for Star Citizen Alpha 4.1.1. As you would with any new update, let's start with something old, the Argo Raft. This classic supremely mediocre cargo ship with its previously clunky trio of rails was a challenge to load and unload while carrying a mere 96 SCU of junk without having the built-in tractor beam that it was always supposed to have. Now those shitty rails have turned into a gigantic upside-down truck bed for you to load a massive 192 SCU of garbage onto with a tractor beam mounted in an almost useful corner position. And now you can even fire the top-mounted turret as the pilot, finally making it so you don't have to share the cozy living area and numerous his and her accommodations of your flying shoebox with a needy co-pilot. But there's always plenty of options for a truly solo pilot, and that now includes the Mirai Guardian MX. This variant of the tried and true TIE Interceptor design we've seen in the Mirai Guardian has a larger footprint with a wider, taller, and generally chodier appearance that will leave your enemies reeling from the thick hammer of justice. This heavy fighter is an even heavier fighter that swaps out the 2 size 5 weapons for 4 size 4 guns that you can use to pepper your opponents with an unrelenting barrage of deadly tickles. It also swaps out your default 16 size 2 missiles for a bespoke dual rack of 24 size 2 missiles, except now they pop out of the top of your ship vertically because someone realized there's plenty of room for missiles to turn in space. Adding all of this firepower comes at a cost though, and as you squeeze into the rear of your ship, you might not immediately recognize how, as you're greeted with the same compact receiving area featuring a weapon rack and a still pointless suit storage. But beyond this door, you'll emerge into an all-new long red hallway of components, and despite the fact that practically half of this area is empty floor space, there's no longer a sleeping area, ice cream station, or even a whiff of a shitter shower. Instead, in its place, you'll get an extra size 2 shield to better protect your thicker ass, as well as an upgrade from 2 size 1 power plants to 1 size 2 power plant, which, according to numbers, is an improvement. And in that classic all-glass cockpit of unobstructed views of all of your guns obstructing your view is now completely obstructed by a retractable armor plating that generates live video view, re-unobstructing your view, all to provide more armor and make this chode extra thick. Yet with that thickness, you'll lose some quickness and end up in a boxy battleship that turns even slower than its original design. So you'll need to make use of all of those missiles and additional guns to take out your target before they can leisurely flank your lethargic dogfighting brick. However, you'll be able to get plenty of practice with that space combat action in the all-new space combat missions. You can start out climbing the ladder of Gilly's combat missions, where you'll gain valuable knowledge of how to fly to mission areas and blow up the enemies that spawn there, so you'll know how to do that exact same thing for every other bounty hunter and mercenary mission in the game. However, instead of getting paid just boring old UEC, you'll also gain shiny new Mercenary Guild script. These lovely metallic Besk Aren't bars are instantaneously space emailed to your home inventory along with a lovely participation t-shirt upon your successful completion of the mission. And while those scripts don't do anything on their own, you can haul them over to your local alien friend Wickalow to trade them for favors to get all of the crazy crap you can unlock if you hoard enough of those. But if you're looking to hoard a kill count while also being able to haul away all of the bodies on your journey, then you might want to check out the Star Lancer TAC. This variant of the fairly versatile Star Lancer platform trades some of that precious cargo space for all the guns that can and will ever be and straps them to the outside. As you enter from the rear, it might seem like you're still in the comfort of that familiar base model cargo hold featuring convenient windows for your boxes to see the stars and redundant elevators taking you to the crew quarters. Except now when you take either one of these to the second level, you'll find yourself adjacent to the tiniest little hangar you ever saw. One perfect for slipping your Mirai Fury snub fighter into, or maybe two if you're willing to risk a devastating physics-induced self-destruction. Even though this hangar is extra petite, it takes up the space of the lovely rooms and beds of the original ship, so now your crew gets packed in like sardines beside the party room and are forced to share one of 2 shitter showers. But you may not have time for either of those leisure activities when you're taking advantage of all of the extra armaments on board, like these new rear-mounted remote turret racks that cover your broad cargo-laden ass. And if you make your way back down, you can hop into either one of these side-mounted turrets extending from the bottom of the ship, secured with the might of these tiny struts, allowing you to bombard anything that happens to be both beside and slightly below you. However, instead of that extra cargo walkway across the belly of the Star Lancer, you'll instead have 8 drop seats for all of your friends to sprint out in opposite directions directly in the line of fire of your side turrets. But if you wanted a dropship that could carry a bit more muscle into the imaginary dropship gameplay that might one day be in the game, you'll want to check out the Anvil Asgard. If you like the Anvil Valkyrie but thought, hey, can I have a ship that's exactly like this but better in every way, then your wish has come true. This non-variant variant pops out most of the dropship chairs and replaces them with a massive cargo area with twice the volume of the Valkyrie, ready to haul even the biggest tonks to the front lines of non-existent gameplay. And you can probably just replace those drop seats with beanbags to carry the same amount of people. Plus, you'll get a massive assortment of forward-facing guns that will let you shred anything that wanders into your path, as well as a bottom-facing turret, a giant missile rack, and the standard side-mounted Gatling guns that you can use to shoot off your own wings. But you will have to give up the numerous communal exposed sleeping areas for the smaller crew requirements of the Asgard and be relegated to only this cozy coffin pod bunk bed for your pilot and turret gunner. But at least that's fewer people to share the singular shitter shower across the hall. Yet you may want to have that intimate close quarters experience with your crew but don't have the budget to get it off the ground, so that's why you'll have to get yourself a Greycat MTC. Greycat has finally graduated from the world of golf carts and Power Wheels Jeeps to a vehicle that actually has a purpose, hypothetically. This latest addition to Star Citizen's rolling box ground vehicle line is a moderately compact and shielded version of the Turtle Van that allows you and potentially a friend to ride into battle with a gun turret strapped to the top. You can control it from the driver's seat or pop into the passenger jump seat for a dedicated combat role, taking on anything that is either on or close to the ground and weak enough for 2 size 2 guns to take out. And assuming your kindergarten drawing of a car survives in a combat experience, you can grab your armor from the non-functional suit racks, pick up your guns, and roll out from this cool side door ready to wreak havoc as an army of 2. And when you're done, you can grab up to 4 small boxes of loot to place in the rear protected cargo storage and try to squeeze this bad boy back into a ship that can carry it to the handful of places where it can one day actually do something. But there is one thing you can do in this update that doesn't require any money, and no, it's not get the all-new flight blades that let you customize your ship's flight capabilities. It's the brand new Hunt the Polaris mission. This event will continue the mediocrity of Fight for Pyro and its battle against the Frontier Fighters, for which you have no real investment, in an effort to blow up a Polaris that they've stolen, along with a bunch of smaller fighter ships to let the poor people feel like they have a reason to participate. But as long as you do participate, you'll get a cut of the cash prize as well as a sentimental keepsake for the event in the form of a Polaris seat that presumably had the corpses of Frontier Fighters sprayed off of it. And if you're lucky, it won't bug out like all the other furniture and become immovable before you get it placed somewhere in your hangar. However, much like last year's Save Stanton mission had us fighting against an Idris to show off the newly implemented Polaris, this mission has us hunting a Polaris with a newly implemented player version of the idris-p. The ship we've toured for years has finally been completed, and if you can navigate the labyrinthian hallways that make up the maze of this ship and can afford the $1,500 price tag, and manage to get one of the limited quantity, you'll be able to leap straight into the Star Citizen's endgame. Except you're not quite there yet, because you'll obviously want to shell out an extra $250 for an aftermarket kit, turning your idris-p into an idris-t, which has torpedoes, or an idris-k that has a claser. But whether you're shredding ships with gigantic explosive torpedoes, beaming holes through them with gigantic blazing lasers, or just taking them on with the million-manned remote and PDC turrets, you can be sure that capital ship combat will always be the metaphorical and literal embodiment of whales fucking. Star Citizen Alpha 4.1.1. All of the biggest and smallest ships you could ever want, and almost half of the placeholder gameplay you need to make them worth having. But if you'd like to see more Star Citizen videos, including the upcoming 4.2 update right around the corner, like this video and check out more Abbreviated Reviews.